Abby, this was my favorite episode. There was a moment where I became aware of something that I've been tackling for a long time, like a awareness of how my body is a guidance mechanism. It was so powerful. How about you? How did you like the episode?
Oh, I loved it. And to witness that moment too, because I know the moment you're talking about, I saw it in your physicality as it landed in your cells, and it just like as a witness felt like it deepened the relationship that you have. Like, oh yeah, I am that beacon, I am that divining rod. And how, I was really struck by this conversation about, hypervigilance and maybe how it can serve us and how we can shift that relationship so that it does serve us in a really positive way, but also just how being in our bodies allows us to be in our lives really was like the landing pad for me.
Anyone who's listening, if you're interested in this integrating, like the body, it's a lot of us. Like we are, we are this body, and somehow that is what makes the difference between you and me. One of the differences is you have that body and I have this body, and it's such an interesting awareness that in some ways, by not listening to our bodies, we are amputating ourselves. We are sabotaging how connected and also how much information we can receive. It's like we deliberately remove one of our senses when we don't listen to our bodies. It was a really powerful episode.
Oh, people are going to love this one, I'm sure. I'm excited.
Well, enjoy it out there. Hello, my Katie.
Hello, Sophie.
How are you?
I always feel an expansion in my whole breathing when I look at you. I was like, yes.
There is a sense of home being together. It's really very special for me too. I think the richness of our friendship and the number of years that we've been so close. And it's almost like being with myself. It's like being with the best version of myself when I'm with you, which feels really great.
That's lovely. Thank you. And part of my intention, and I think our intention for doing this podcast, is that people can tune into and receive and open up to, that flow of connection in their own lives, because it is such a homecoming and a place from which we can launch ourselves into the unknown.
Can you imagine if if all relationships, like if this connectiveness that we feel was the base of people's experience in life, how I know I just took a deep breath.
Yes, that's exactly what I did, was like,
the way people drive, the way people spend their money, the way people treat their bodies, like all the things that are affected by that very thing of like, it chokes me a little bit, to like the number of people that don't have that anywhere in their lives. It's quite it would be a harder world to live in for sure.
Yes, and I think part of our intention is that we make the world softer.
Yes, with a little more being, a little more playing, a little more.
Yes,
wait, that's a big title.
Oh gosh, that sounds familiar.
Those words are great. So something happened this weekend that I was, like I often do, like what is a good conversation for us, and I wasn't in the conversation. I was just watching two people worrying about each other, and one kind of jumping to try to fix the other, and the other one kind of not wanting to be helped, and the other one pushing for it. It was just like, ooh.
What it was reminding me of, just you're saying that, was picking up one of my cats and trying to hide the intention that I wanted to put some medicine on a boo-boo. And they're
if you saw this, people, watch the YouTube for that one. Just the Katie being the cat who doesn't want the medicine.
Well, I think people are usually more trained not to be quite that obvious, but I think that people do receive a kind of squirminess if they feel you coming at them.
That's exactly what it felt like. I was witnessing someone, and what was interesting is they were both doing it in different ways. It was almost like neither one wanted the help of the other, but instead of saying, I don't want the help, they were returning it and like sending back the elevator to the other person who also didn't want it. And so it was just like a back and forth. And then I left and went to play pickleball.
It's the old hot potato move.
Yes.
No, I don't want it. I don't want it.
So
But
what do you recommend? I think it's an interesting, because worrying about others is a place that people go. Like the second they hear someone is sick or that something happened or whatever, it's like people go to worry and they want to fix. They want to get
the
rid of
first
this
thing that
feeling
happens in worry is that people go up. They
in their
go
head.
up to their mind,
Oh.
and your mind can only work with what's being given it by your body experience. So your sensations, your memories, your emotions, your and so if you're not giving any flow to your mind, worrying is a recirculation of something that's already happened or something that hasn't happened. And so our whole be present really is the antidote to that. So to be here now, takes you out of that flurry, which is really a flee move. It's a flee fear move, is to worry. And we think we're doing something, but we're really just on a gerbil wheel of,
And that's really, that is exactly what it felt like. Actually, what seems to happen then is that feeling is so uncomfortable that people go into fixing. Then they go into, and I know you often speak of the hero move, but it feels very much like, I don't want to feel this worry, don't know what to do with myself. And so I jump in to try to fix you so that I don't have to feel this worry feeling.
I don't want to feel what's going on for me.
Yes.
And so I want you to stop doing that thing you're doing so that I don't have to feel the thing I don't want to feel.
Which is probably why the other person is like, ah, because it's not a genuine... yeah, exactly. It's not a genuine. So, and I love the way you just distinguished also, it's from the past, or it's not happened yet, because then the antidote is like, what, like right now,
yes,
what am I feeling? Like right now, what's present? Right now, do I need to, like, is there a lion coming after me? Because if so, you should start running.
right.
Good. That's the proper answer. But other than that, most of the time there isn't a lion, but yet somehow we act as if there was.
Yes. And what I was hearing, like, if there were a lion, you'd already be out the door, because it
wouldn't be thinking.
You wouldn't be thinking. So thinking slows us down. And we also know that body sensations get to the brain 4 to 10 times faster than your thoughts. So your body gets there first. So that's why it's so valuable to give attention to what's going on in my body right now, because that's really the source of your aliveness, but it's also the source of solutions, new solutions. So, because if I'm doing the same old, jumping into the future or jumping over into the other person's experience, it's what one of our workshop participants years ago called getting up into somebody's grill.
Yeah.
I really, and I can experience that. There's that kind of force behind it, and and you can feel the other person's unwillingness to experience just what they're experiencing. And so getting other people to experience for you is really a way of tamping down your potential.
And giving yourself comfort, giving yourself a fake comfort.
A fake and a temporary.
Yeah.
Because it's only always temporary, that kind of rescuing, which is really at the heart of the hero. And and I was remembering also that, in my family, I was, my parents, especially my dad, was completely uninterested in anything having to do with growth or transformation, or, as an engineer, he was a problem solver. And so he was really set up for having a solution to something going on. He would try to fix it. He was a professional fixer. And so I think for many people, they don't understand that if I open up more space for feeling inside, that also gets communicated, that presence can jumpstart presence for someone else. Because we're so used to what we would call our negative emotions, worrying and anger and fear being communicated, but we don't really have much experience with presence being contagious, which it is.
That's really beautiful. I was same event on Saturday. We ended up in a park. I was with a friend of mine who, granted, was expressed that he was very tired. He had left very early and he was really hungry. So I knew there was a little terrain for like toddler behavior.
Right.
And we tried to get out of this parking lot, and there was a lot of traffic in front of us, and so it was really congested. Like there really was not going, it was not. And we
Right.
were on our way to dinner.
Kind of stuck.
We were stuck. And I was like, I haven't seen my friend in a while. I just had this great workshop. I'm chatting. I'm here. I'm not particularly hungry. Great. But the more like, and it came pretty fast, like maybe a minute or two, there started to be like, why is this car? How many cars?
Yeah.
And he was so reactive to what was happening. That's when I said, how about you repark and we go to a restaurant that's walking distance so we can go now, And he looked at me, and it was really interesting because I saw that he was, as you were just saying, you disconnect from your own solution capability when you're in that space. It's like
Mhm.
the tension was preventing. It was almost like there was a lion after us, and there wasn't. I was just like, we could there's this park, we can go eat.
Yeah, but for him, there was a real lion.
Yes.
So our imaginary lions, we act as if
feel we yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I remember years ago being given some sort of a grading mechanism because I had vigilance do you remember in the scene it's in, what's that movie with Matt Damon, the Born Identity?
Oh,
in a restaurant with someone, and he's like, why do I know that there is 3 cars with a license plate from over there? And why do I know that this guy went to the bathroom 3 times? And, whatever, and I remember seeing that and being like,
yeah,
I have that. I grew up in a very unsafe environment.
Yes.
And I grew up with a lot of where's the door? I mean, a version of how do I
get out of here?
How do I get out if I need
to? Yeah.
Exactly. And so that grading system, I was in therapy many years ago, and he had said to me, for a while, I would like you to decide if the environment you're in is a 10, is there a lion? Should we be responding this guy was responding to a little traffic, there was a lion? That's a 2. That's not a 10. And so learning to assess, it was such a fun exercise. I would be in a situation and I'd be like, 4. All right, can I do something to bring it to a 2? Yeah, I could sit on that side of the table. Great. Can I change side and just adjust to feel a little bit more safety? But the very fact that I measured that not everything was, it was so surprising how often my reflex was 9, 10 when it really wasn't
I understand. And what I love about that is that, well, first of all, you were getting some agency, some control. I can make a choice here. I'm not just completely helpless. But part of the prescription for you was that you had to give attention to yourself to assess.
Yes.
It was a kind of
yes. I didn't even see that.
smuggly way of getting you to give attention to you.
Oh, wow.
And then also develop what we might call the witness consciousness, so that your awareness got bigger than the threat by your using your evaluation to give you a framework that you would have some control over. So that was, in my opinion, quite a brilliant move of your therapist.
It's interesting because I never connected, in order for me to know what number I would have, it wasn't a mental process. I couldn't sit there and be like, oh, I wonder if there is a lion. It really was a move down, drop in my own self.
To your body awareness, into your sensory awareness, which gives you more space in which to be, rather than in this tiny little, gerbil wheel that's going round and round and, just creating spin-off of anxiety.
There's so much wisdom to the body. It's look at percentage-wise. Look at how much body there is in relation to brain. Isn't it? I mean, someone who's in charge knew, it's this is the percentage, this big thing is the percentage, the higher percentage of where to listen from. It's funny. That's really funny.
And also has the capability of moving and responding in a great variety of ways. Whereas when we're stuck in our heads, we tend to polarize. It tends to become an either or. I can either do this, or, I'm either going to get out of here right now, or I'm going to die, or, I'm either going to eat, or I'm going to get into a wreck. I'm just, there's only that either or I feel bad and it's your fault, that kind of polarizing. But when we give attention to our bodies, we open up, these 360 degrees of responsiveness rather than just two.
I also feel like there's lies in my brain. My brain lies to me. I experience sometimes, like it makes me believe something, to, like, especially interpreting other people's behavior, or
I really don't like you.
It's like I just walk in and, like, were you talking about me? Like, if they were talking about me, were they saying something? Like, I make up. My
Yes.
brain makes up stuff, like, when it doesn't know. I mean, I think everyone's brain, it's like somehow it needs to fill up the blank. When the body doesn't lie, like if I walk in a situation that doesn't feel safe, it's not a thought. It's definitely some sort of it's funny, because when we walked out and we did walk to the restaurant, there was a situation in the gas station where people were fighting, and like physically fighting. Like, one of the guys from the actual gas station came out to, like, this guy probably had stolen something or whatever, and they were physically fighting. But what was interesting is, right before we got to the gas station, I said, why don't we cross, like, the red light? It was we could either wait for the red light, or I said, why don't we just do it now? And therefore we didn't step into
you didn't step into something that would have been sort of the natural escalation from feeling hangry, and then off you go into something that would be a great, movie scene.
Exactly. And so by crossing the street, we like almost like officially we became witness as opposed to participants, because we would have been there was no way out. It's like that light took us into the park, that place where the fight was. And it would have been, I mean, if nothing else, we would have been there close physically,
Right,
more.
right.
But my body knew, like, or
your body knew, your
my body
intuition
knew.
Your intuition lives in your body, new choices, but also timing. So this really confirms what I was talking about the body's faster.
Yes.
So you you just responded to that. So it didn't, it activated, I want to make a different choice here. And you did that and stayed in flow.
Yes.
And you didn't stop there and go, well, I wonder if we should, because then you would have been in the
so you're literally saying that as I was advancing and decided or chose to cross the street, so it didn't you're saying that my body truly knew, like they really wanted to know that.
Yes.
That's really something, huh? Because there was no indicator. There was a turn, like there was no visual cues. There really was anything other than.
Well, so we think there were no visual cues, but we can pick up the tiniest
with the body
of signals, and then also it feeds into the history that we carry in ourselves. So all of the generations before us that have learned, and the reason you're here is that people have been able to respond to that kind of situation successfully over and over and over again through generations.
And survived, yeah.
And survived. So it can, for some people, it can be for you it's a hypervigilance, but you modified the hypervigilance so that it becomes a tool for you rather than a chain, that ties you to a certain response. So it's just such a great illustration of how befriending our bodies, and particularly befriending sensations and emotions that might be unfamiliar or uncomfortable to us, expands our map. It expands the inner map rather than having territories we can't go into because we're not willing to experience them. But if I'm willing to experience what's going on with me, it adds to sort of the brilliance of my being able to respond in life in a way that's really skillful.
It's fascinating. It's almost like we ourselves have cut off a limb, like we've amputated ourselves of a part of us that's one of, I mean, if not the wisdom, the intelligence.
Yeah, the wisdom of our learning, the wisdom of our experiences and our emotions. It was reminding me of what I did once at I was doing a corporate retreat, and people were talking about how, we can't have feelings at work. Are you kidding? And so for a whole half day, I had them tie one of their arms behind their back. and to go through the rest of the day without
Take
that
them.
arm. Yeah.
Mhm.
And just to see what it's like to function with less than your full capability, because that's what happens if we're denying or suppressing or not having a way to communicate what's going on in our inner life.
Oh, that is fascinating. I do remember this hypervigilance when I became aware of it, because when I was in it, it didn't, it was the proper thing to be operating at a 10, like everything is a 10, until I realized, one, I didn't have to, and two, that it really was something I could act on. Like I could
Yes, you
actually,
did
like,
have a choice, because
I
when
did.
you're in that, your reflexes have taken over. So
Yes.
the fight or flight is there for a really important reason, so that you can get away from the tigers. And so
Yes.
if you think there's a tiger there, that's your experience. That's how you're going to react. So, I mean, I just want to just give you kudos again for the years in which you have, modified and opened up the space so that you're not, constantly in that activated state, which I think so many people are right now because they are caught in fear.
That is incredible. I remember walking in a different therapist. I did a few of those years, but I walked in her office and she had a fish tank. And I walked in and I said, "Oh, you got a new fish." And she said, "There are 30 fish in this tank. Like, how can you know?" She had gotten a new fish. And she was like, "How the F do you know that I had a new
Uh-huh.
fish?" And I was like, "Because I knew how many fish. I knew that it felt different." Like, and that's when she was like, "Some people are medicated for that." And I said, "Let's try a different route. I'd rather not sell, medicate
Exactly.
more."
That would be, and that's so interesting that you say that, because I think it's like suppress it. Don't feel it. It's going to, don't rock the boat. So it fits into our upper limit problem. So if I cannot handle this much energy,
Mhm.
whether it's fear, or whether it's excitement, or whether it's sadness, or anger, if I can't handle that, then I don't get to experience more energy.
Which is so interesting, because what it led to, not taking medication for it, is is I built a relationship with me, because there was a little girl in there that really did think there were tigers everywhere. And if I had taken medication, I probably would have dulled the idea that the tigers are there, but I still would have walked around the earth thinking all the time, when really what it did is it
Ah,
allowed me to be like, wow, like why do you need to know where the door is? Like, where did that start, and it
oh,
led
yeah.
me to this incredible.
It's so beautiful. So if I and what you're also illustrating is that when I turn toward my experience rather than making my experience wrong,
Mhm.
and I actually let it inform me, and I'm interacting with it, then I get more resources, I get more choice, but I also get more of the richness of life.
Mhm.
So your, hypervigilance, also creates, it's the breeding ground for disease.
Yeah.
And then also, if I'm suppressing what I'm experiencing, if I'm suppressing my emotions, especially, which are just body sensations clumped
Just
together,
energy. Yeah.
and it's just energy. But if I suppress that, it doesn't go away.
No.
It goes into my systems and starts shutting things down.
Yeah, because the motivation to be so aware and so vigilant of things came from fear and pain and hurt and unsafe and all these feelings. Taking medication to just cover up the top layer, that's all it would do. It would cover up. But I can tell you, I remember it was 20, 30 years, a long time ago. I remember though, when I became aware of that dynamic, and I hadn't solved it yet. Like I was still operating like everything is a 10, but I became aware of it. There really was this time where, boy, I don't drink alcohol, but that would have felt like that's a good time to do that, because
Yeah.
to feel this hypervigilance forced the feelings that were right under there, which were
Right.
really scary feelings and
Yeah.
difficult feelings to feel.
And big.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things you did is you got an advocate, a companion, to
Yeah.
help hold the space for you as
Yes.
you were moving into more and more of being able to occupy yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's like having somebody that's, walking along with you and being with you. So you can say, did you see that? And I go, no, I didn't see that. And go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that little
Like
by
checking.
little,
Yeah.
yeah, that checking. So it's, for me, I've been recovering from long COVID. And so I've been where I couldn't walk. And so I've been walking with a cane. And what I've been realizing is that over the last few months, I'm using it less and less for support and more for balance. And so I can really sense is I'm able to stand on my own. I need that less and less, but I really needed it for a while. And
Yeah.
I couldn't have gone, well, people say, well, just, practice your walking. Well, how can I do that when I just don't even have the resources? Because when my quad muscles, got disappeared by COVID, I was missing a part of me. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's really just such a great metaphor about when we cut off parts of ourselves,
Yeah.
we can't function fully.
Yes. Yes.
And then sometimes we need support in order
Yes.
to make that progression back to, finding our full presence.
What's beautiful with what you're saying too is you needed the cane the way maybe I needed the vigilance in my
Exactly.
childhood. But then what's beautiful with having the same way you transform, now the cane is more for balance, which is a choice, which is you like it better, like it makes you feel a little bit more confident or whatever. Similarly to me, my hypervigilance has become probably my favorite skill because I can't
Oh,
walk into a room and be like, oh, okay, but I'm no longer taken by it. But if I need to, or when I work with someone or I'm interacting with someone, I have this ability to read things that are so small because at some point I had to, but now it's more of a skill, not a,
oh, in fact, it's a kind of a superpower because you
yeah,
can see something as it's emerging.
yeah,
See, feel, sense, in that sort of magical way that we can do. And then it keeps you from having to slog through, but also you can, catch the wave. So
yes, early,
yes. And
much
so you don't get a
sooner.
tsunami, you get a little wave that is much more friendly to deal with than it would be to, wait till the big bull.
But I've never seen it this way. It's really beautiful because I remember when I was running Shape House, which you were an investor in and such close partner to me. I had staff that would show small behaviors that were like,
Mm-hmm.
if
Uh-huh.
that were to happen 10 times, I would want to talk to them. So why not talk to them now?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I would call a meeting when things were very small. And the
Beautiful.
person coming to my office would be like, oh my God, I was called to the principal's office. And I was like, no, I'm telling you now that if it's continuing this way and you keep being late and your team is waiting for you to be able to open a house or any of those things, it's going to be a problem. So why don't we talk about it when it's small? But people at first be like, wait, I only get talked to when there's a tsunami. Is this a tsunami? No, it's actually a really small wave. So we can discuss it when it's manageable as opposed to, wait for it to have gotten so much momentum that now it's like all I can do is fire you or, really have a,
Oh yeah, that is so beautiful. I was the image to me that was coming when you were talking about this is learning to ride a bicycle.
yeah,
So the little adjustments,
yeah.
make it possible to actually move in a
Oh,
different way, and get more tools and more resources, and when it comes down to it, it really is about just recognizing this is what I'm experiencing.
mm-hmm.
And if we had, like the guardian angel that said, yeah, that was really scary what just happened. And, ooh, and what would you like to, what would you like here? Do you want to talk about it? Or shall we just shake, or shall we put on some music, or shall we go have shall we go down to the beach, or shall we throw rocks, or, what would you like to do so
Like
that you can,
welcomed and
yes,
accompanied.
welcoming and accompanying. I really love that. And I was thinking again, one of my favorite Ram Dass quotes is, "We're all just walking each other home."
I love when you say that. It's
And
just
I love that because it's a sense of, I think that particularly in Western society, and I've experienced it all my life, of you're supposed to be able to handle yourself.
Yeah.
Like when you're a grown up, you're kind of like an island and a rock.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you're not supposed to need other people, but we really know now. I mean, science, and I think anybody who's been through the pandemic knows that we need other people.
We need each other.
We need each other and that connection, because it's not just like we're parking. There's this amazing super highway of information that's flowing back and forth all the time when we're around others. And without that, we become kind of clumsy and kind of mechanical.
And it's less fun. It's
Oh.
simply less fun. Like, it's one of my favorite response when I coach someone or I work with someone and they'll say, but I want to be independent and I don't want to depend on others. And I'm like, did you knit your sweater? Like the sweater you're wearing right now, did you knit that? No, I didn't knit that. It's like, okay, well, someone else knitted that. And the chair you're sitting in, did you build that? And it's just, people like really take in this, like, oh wow, like we are interdependent. And it's a beautiful thing. Like, people are afraid of it because they're afraid they're not going to be taken care of. But when you do it with the people, your chosen tribe or your people because some people do have lesser good intentions. It happens.
Yes, that is true.
It happens.
What I'm also hearing and what you're saying is that the permission to be myself.
Yes.
That I can be how I can be unedited. To me, that's the essence of friendship, is that I can be unedited.
Yeah.
And what I experience with you particularly is the uneditedness then turns into discovery.
Yes.
Because in the flow of information I get, I experience images and old memories and then I can bring that to the conversation, that creates just more richness and more connection and more opportunity. But it's because I am letting myself experience what I'm experiencing directly.
That's incredible. I remember last week when we had finished the episode, and I semi-jokingly said, sometimes you look at me and you think, where is she going? And you're like, no, that is not what I think at all. I think that I trust us and that it's going to lead. Do you remember when you said that?
I remember it now.
I know you do. I love the way you do that. You're so present. It's like when I say this, when I start my sentence with you, do you remember? You're like, I probably won't.
It's true. I probably won't because I've let go of it.
But I'll remind you, because it was a very profound moment for me when in your eyes, I was imagining a little bit of like, like almost inquisition, like almost kind of like not doubting. I didn't take it negative, but there was definitely a little more, where is she going? Like, are we going somewhere interesting? But that's not what you do. You actually trust that when I throw something or you throw something, that somehow we are going to catch it and we are going to roll with it and it is going to be interesting.
I know. And that is from the experience over and over again of riding the wave.
Yeah.
Catching the wave and riding the wave. And so I want to underline that for people, because riding the wave is so delicious.
Yes.
And it's reminding me of, back in the day, because I did some of my growing up in Santa Barbara, and there was a place where it was the only place sort of along the coast where we could ride the waves, there were big enough waves that we could ride them in.
Like surf? Were you doing surfing? Oh, yeah.
I wasn't doing surfing, but I was doing body surfing.
Yeah.
And so learning how to feel the wave, like here it comes, or no, I'm not going to take this one. I'm going to wait for the other one.
Timing, what you were saying about earlier too.
Timing. Mm-hmm. And when people are in our trainings, we say that we can teach them the content very quickly, but timing is really the big skill. Yeah. And the only way you learn that is through full participation, because if you don't catch the wave, you missed it.
And you cannot catch the wave if you're like, oh, how was the previous one? How is the next one? The only way you can catch that wave is if you are with that wave, like in this moment.
In this moment, yeah. So, but what people, I think, are afraid of, it's going to be awful, is because they haven't experienced that even a big feeling, when you let yourself take the ride, adds to your aliveness and your connection and your creativity, so that, and I've worked with people who've had, incredible past experiences where they've had all kinds of emotions. And when they let themselves ride the wave, you can see when they come out of it, there's this there's more of them, and
Yeah.
more love and more ability to respond to life and more ability to enjoy the unknown.
And trust, the way you were saying, I trust us, like to trust myself that I am going to be okay on the other side of that wave,
Yeah.
that I'm going to be
The
safe.
only way we can get that, you cannot ever, I think, talk anybody into that.
No.
That it's really the experience of being with a few waves and going,
I'm actually okay.
yeah, it was a little scary, but it was fun too. And
Yeah.
the excitement, and Fritz Pearl said a long time ago, the psychologist Fritz Pearl said that fear is excitement without the breath.
Yeah.
And so when you catch the wave, you bring your breath and your excitement and your participation and your enjoyment of the whole, that all comes together. And it's like, what a ride.
Oh, what a beautiful play. We actually done with this episode. I was going to launch us into something else, but this is enjoy the ride. That's delicious. Thank you.
Thank you.